Think high-tech farming is the future. Think again. The world's most ingenious growing methods come from tribal communities using nothing but careful observation and everyday materials. These brilliant techniques are so effective, they're forcing modern agriculture to question everything it thought it knew about producing food. Among these ingenious methods, perhaps none demonstrates this resourcefulness better than how certain communities transform the challenge of drought into opportunity through simple but revolutionary soil management. In the sun-baked Sahel region of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, farmers faced an impossible challenge: rock-hard soil that shed precious rainwater like a concrete parking lot. Most agricultural experts declared these areas hopeless for food production. But local farmers had a different idea entirely. They developed what might be the simplest yet most revolutionary farming technique on Earth: zai pits. Picture this: dinner plate-sized holes, just 6 inches deep, scattered across seemingly barren fields like ancient moon craters. These modest depressions don't look like much, but they can increase crop yields by an astounding 500% in areas where nothing else will grow. Here's how this magic works. Instead of allowing rainfall to rush across hard-pan soil and disappear into distant gullies, each pit becomes a tiny reservoir that captures and holds every drop exactly where seeds need it most. Farmers fill these catchments with a mixture of compost, manure, and organic scraps that decompose slowly throughout the growing season, creating nutrient-rich oases in an otherwise hostile landscape. What makes zai pits truly brilliant is their cost-effectiveness. Armed with nothing more than a traditional hoe or digging stick, farmers can transform barren wasteland into productive growing space using materials they already have on hand. The technique requires no machinery, no chemical inputs, and no expensive infrastructure. When the rains finally arrive, instead of washing away topsoil and seeds, water gets trapped in these strategic locations, creating countless micro-environments where crops flourish even during unpredictable weather patterns. This ancient innovation has succeeded in regions where modern agricultural technology, with all its complexity and expense, has simply failed to take root. While zai pits solved the challenge of capturing precious rainwater, some communities discovered that the secret to thriving agriculture lay not in clearing the land, but in working with the trees already growing there. Across West and Central Africa, farmers have been practicing what might seem like agricultural heresy to modern eyes. They deliberately keep trees right in the middle of their crop fields. While conventional farming wisdom demands clearing every tree to maximize planting space, these communities discovered that strategic tree placement creates farming systems that practically manage themselves. This agroforestry approach transforms fields into multi-layered ecosystems that mirror natural forests. Tall trees form a protective canopy above, while smaller shrubs occupy the middle level, and food crops thrive at ground level. Each layer serves the others in remarkable ways. The trees act like giant umbrellas, providing dappled shade that shields sensitive crops from scorching midday sun, while dramatically reducing water evaporation from the soil below. But their most impressive trick happens underground. Tree roots plunge deep into the earth, sometimes reaching 30 feet down, mining nutrients from geological layers that shallow crop roots could never access. These deep-diving roots essentially become nutrient elevators, pulling up minerals and organic compounds that would otherwise remain locked away. When leaves fall, they create a natural mulch carpet that slowly decomposes, continuously feeding the soil while holding moisture like a sponge. This leaf litter also prevents torrential rains from washing away precious topsoil that takes decades to build. Perhaps most brilliantly, many selected trees produce valuable harvests themselves. Farmers gather fruits, nuts, medicinal bark, animal fodder, and construction materials from the same land that grows their food crops. Why settle for one harvest when you can have 3 or 4 from the same space? This principle of beneficial plant partnerships extends beyond trees, leading innovative farmers to discover how certain ground-level crops can actually help each other grow stronger. East African farmers perfected one of nature's most ingenious partnerships by deliberately mixing their staple crops with what appears to be complete chaos. Walk through their fields and you'll see maize towering above, sorghum and millet at medium height, with beans, peas and groundnuts sprawling between them in patterns that look random, but are actually masterfully planned. This intercropping strategy taps into a remarkable biological process happening invisibly underground. Legumes like beans and peas host special bacteria in tiny nodules on their roots that perform what seems like magic. They pull nitrogen directly from the air and convert it into plant-usable fertilizer. This means every legume plant acts like a tiny fertilizer factory, continuously feeding not just itself, but neighbouring crops throughout the entire growing season. The benefits multiply beyond free fertilizer. Pests that would normally devastate a field of identical crops become confused and disoriented when faced with this botanical diversity. Different plants emit different scents, harbour different beneficial insects, and create physical barriers that make it nearly impossible for diseases to spread rapidly through an entire field. This three-dimensional farming approach maximises every inch of available space. Tall crops provide partial shade for heat-sensitive plants below, while shallow-rooted species access surface nutrients and deep-rooted ones mine resources far underground. The varied plant heights and growth patterns create countless microenvironments within a single field. Most remarkably, each harvest actually improves the soil rather than depleting it, as the decomposing legume roots leave behind nitrogen deposits that benefit the next planting cycle. It's the complete opposite of conventional monocultures that exhaust the land over time. While farmers learned to harness helpful plant relationships, some discovered that beneficial partnerships could extend to creatures most people consider pests. In West Africa, most farmers would immediately destroy any termite mound appearing on their property. But traditional farmers in this region recognise these towering structures as nature's own fertiliser factories and turned what others consider a destructive pest into their most valuable farming partner. These industrious insects perform remarkable geological engineering entirely for free. As millions of termites build their elaborate homes, they collect clay particles from deep underground and mix them with their saliva, inadvertently concentrating essential minerals like calcium, magnesium and potassium that are often depleted in surrounding soils. The result? Soil around termite mounds becomes 5 to 10 times more fertile than areas just a few feet away. But the benefits extend far beyond supercharged soil chemistry. The architectural marvel of termite mounds includes countless tiny channels and chambers that dramatically improve water infiltration and storage. When rains arrive, water penetrates deeply into these structures instead of running off, while the clay-rich composition holds on to moisture during dry periods, like a sophisticated irrigation system. Farmers who understand this relationship plan strategically around the edges of active mounds, allowing the insects to continue their soil-improving work, while crops benefit from the enhanced growing conditions. The termites' constant tunnelling also aerates the soil deeply, allowing plant roots to penetrate more easily and access nutrients and water that would otherwise be locked in compacted earth. This creates crops that remain green and productive, even during drought conditions that devastate conventional fields, essentially providing free mechanical tillage and irrigation, using nothing but the insect's natural building instincts. This partnership between farmers and nature's engineers inspired human-designed systems that could replicate similar benefits in small spaces. Farmers in Lesotho, Kenya and Zimbabwe took inspiration from nature's engineering principles and created perhaps the most space-efficient growing system ever devised, the keyhole garden. These distinctive circular raised beds combine raised bed gardening, composting and water conservation into one brilliant design that produces astonishing amounts of food from areas no larger than a dining room table. The genius lies in the shape itself. Picture a round raised bed with a small notch cut into one side, creating a keyhole appearance when viewed from above. This design allows gardeners to reach the centre without ever stepping on and compacting the growing soil, maximising every square inch of productive space. At the heart of each garden sits a composting basket made from sticks, chicken wire, or whatever materials are locally available. This central cylinder receives kitchen scraps, grey water from washing, and other organic materials continuously throughout the growing season, creating a steady supply of nutrients that slowly seep outward to feed surrounding plants. The garden bed itself is built in carefully planned layers, cardboard or sticks at the bottom for drainage, followed by manure, soil, ash and compost, all sloped gently downward from the centre basket toward the edges. This slope ensures that water naturally flows from the compost outward, carrying nutrients to all plants, while requiring far less irrigation than conventional gardens. Built waist high, these gardens eliminate back-breaking labour while protecting crops from flooding, soil-borne diseases and wandering animals. Once established, they require remarkably little maintenance beyond adding kitchen scraps to the centre basket, yet they maintain year-round production even during challenging weather conditions. While keyhole gardens optimise small-scale growing systems, farmers working with larger areas needed methods to protect their soil across entire fields. Across Uganda, Tanzania and Rwanda, farmers discovered that one of agriculture's most effective soil protection systems was hiding in plain sight: the massive leaves discarded after every banana harvest. Instead of treating these giant green sheets as waste, resourceful farmers carefully collect and spread them across their garden beds, creating protective blankets that outperform any store-bought product. These natural mulch sheets immediately begin working multiple jobs simultaneously. They block the harsh African sun from beating directly on soil, dramatically slowing evaporation and keeping precious moisture locked in the ground, where roots can access it for days longer after each rainfall. The thick leaf material also physically smothers competitive weeds before they can even sprout, saving countless hours of backbreaking weeding work. But the benefits extend far beyond moisture conservation. The leaves create perfect cool, dark, moist conditions where earthworms and beneficial soil microbes multiply rapidly, turning the ground beneath into a living fertility factory. As these massive leaves slowly decompose over the growing season, they release their stored nutrients gradually: potassium, magnesium and calcium that were pulled up from deep earth by the banana plants and are now recycled back to new crops in perfect timing. During heavy downpours, the leaf shields prevent pounding rain from compacting soil or washing away seeds and topsoil, while simultaneously allowing water to seep through slowly and sink deeply, rather than running off and causing erosion. The thick material acts as both umbrella and sponge, moderating water delivery exactly when and how plants need it most. What makes this technique truly brilliant is its complete sustainability. It costs absolutely nothing, requires no special tools, and uses a resource that's abundantly available precisely when it's needed most. Beyond protecting existing water in the soil, some communities developed remarkable techniques for pulling moisture directly from the air itself. In the mountainous and coastal regions of Namibia, Ethiopia, and Morocco, communities developed one of humanity's most ingenious responses to water scarcity: harvesting moisture directly from fog-laden air, using nothing more sophisticated than strategically positioned nets. This technique transforms what appears to be empty air into flowing streams of life-giving water. Farmers string large mesh nets made from fishing line, repurposed window screens, or other inexpensive materials between poles, positioning them perpendicular to the prevailing winds that carry fog inland from oceans or up mountain slopes during predictable seasonal patterns. The science behind this seeming magic is elegantly simple. Tiny water droplets suspended in fog collide with the mesh surface and gradually combine, growing heavier until they run down the netting into collection troughs positioned below. What makes this technique truly remarkable is the sheer volume of water that can be harvested from seemingly dry air. A single large fog collector can gather hundreds of gallons per day during peak fog conditions. These systems provide enough moisture to irrigate community gardens, tree nurseries, and small farms in places where traditional agriculture would be completely impossible. The collected water transforms barren landscapes into productive growing areas, turning what outsiders see as harsh, inhospitable environments into reliable sources of sustenance. Communities have refined their techniques over generations, learning optimal positioning angles, seasonal timing, and collection methods that maximize water capture while minimizing maintenance. The fog harvesting season often provides enough stored water to sustain agriculture through dry periods, creating year-round food security in regions where rainfall alone could never support farming. While fog harvesting maximizes water collection from air, other communities found ways to make existing water sources work double duty. Tribal farmers discovered that the same water used to flood rice paddies could simultaneously support another complete food system by introducing small fish fingerlings into their newly planted fields. This integration creates a remarkable partnership where each element supports the other in ways that double the productivity of the same land and water resources. When farmers stock their flooded rice paddies with carefully selected fish species, they set in motion a natural pest control system that eliminates the need for harmful chemical treatments. The fish immediately begin hunting for insect larvae, snails, and aquatic weeds that would normally damage young rice plants, providing completely free protection while cleaning the water through their constant movement and feeding activity. As these busy fish patrol between growing rice stalks, they continuously excrete nutrient-rich waste that acts as perfect slow-release fertilizer delivered directly to rice roots. This natural fertilization provides essential nitrogen, phosphorus, and micronutrients exactly where and when plants need them, often increasing rice yields by 10 to 15% without adding any outside fertilizers to the system. The elevated dikes and deeper channels that farmers construct around these integrated paddies serve dual purposes, controlling water levels for optimal rice growth, while creating refuge areas where fish can retreat during hot weather or when water levels drop. This thoughtful design ensures fish survival from one growing season to the next. When harvest time approaches, farmers gradually lower water levels, making it easy to collect fully grown fish that have transformed rice field pests and naturally occurring algae into valuable protein. This creates a second complete harvest from the exact same resources used for grain production. The principle of natural pest control that makes fish rice systems work so well extends to dry land farming through the strategic use of readily available materials. Farmers discovered that one of agriculture's most powerful pest control tools was literally sitting in their cooking fires every day, wood ash from heating and cooking fires. Instead of discarding this fine grey powder, knowledgeable farmers carefully collect and apply it strategically around their crops, creating protective barriers that numerous destructive insects refuse to cross. The ash works on multiple levels simultaneously. Its fine, dusty texture physically irritates soft-bodied pests like slugs and snails, causing them to dehydrate when they attempt to crawl across it. The material also disrupts the waxy protective coating on many insects' bodies, while containing compounds that certain pests can detect and actively avoid, making it both a physical and chemical deterrent. What makes this technique truly ingenious is how farmers have developed precise application methods. They dust ash directly on plant leaves during early morning dew, so it sticks just enough to deter leaf-eating insects but washes off before blocking sunlight. They create protective circles around plant stems to block crawling pests, or mix ash into irrigation water to deliver both protection and nutrition in a single step. Beyond pest control, the ash delivers a powerful punch of potassium, calcium and magnesium, minerals that were concentrated in the wood and are now returned to soil in readily available form. This simultaneously adjusts soil pH, counteracting the natural acidification that occurs in many tropical soils and creating better growing conditions for most food crops. Unlike chemical pesticides that kill beneficial insects alongside pests, ash applications work primarily as deterrents rather than poison, maintaining the ecological balance that sustains natural predators while decomposing into soil-building minerals after serving their protective purpose. Beyond using natural materials for protection, some farming communities synchronize their entire agricultural calendar with natural rhythms most modern farmers ignore. For thousands of years, tribal farmers across virtually every continent have synchronized their entire agricultural calendar with one of nature's most reliable rhythms, the phases of the moon. What might initially sound like ancient superstition actually represents sophisticated environmental knowledge, developed through countless growing seasons of careful observation. These traditional farmers don't randomly pick days for planting and harvesting. They follow detailed systems passed down through generations that match specific crops and activities to precise lunar positions, creating farming rhythms that flow with natural cycles rather than fighting against them. According to this ancient wisdom, crops that produce their yield above ground, like corn, tomatoes, and leafy greens, should be planted during the waxing moon, when gravitational forces that create ocean tides also draw water upward in soil and plants, promoting stronger germination and vigorous top growth. Root crops like potatoes, carrots, and onions are planted during the waning moon, when those same forces drive energy downward, encouraging strong root development exactly where it's needed. The system extends far beyond planting to nearly every farm activity, harvesting leafy crops during the full moon when moisture content peaks, pruning trees during the waning moon to minimize sap loss, and weeding during specific phases when root systems are weakest and easier to remove completely. This lunar calendar created reliable community coordination long before printed schedules existed, allowing farming villages to optimize labor by grouping similar tasks together. Modern scientific studies have begun confirming surprising connections between lunar cycles and plant physiology, including variations in seed water absorption, germination rates, and even insect activity patterns that align remarkably well with traditional claims. While moon phase timing represents ancient wisdom, some of today's most innovative tribal farmers are solving modern problems by transforming contemporary waste into agricultural solutions. Farmers in the drought-prone Sahel region discovered that one of modern society's most persistent waste problems could become their most reliable irrigation solution: discarded plastic bottles. Instead of letting these containers accumulate as environmental hazards, resourceful farmers transform them into precision water delivery systems that outperform expensive commercial irrigation equipment. The technique is beautifully simple, yet highly effective. Farmers collect empty plastic bottles, carefully pierce small holes near the bottom using heated nails or thorns, then bury them next to newly planted crops with only the neck exposed above ground. When filled with water, these buried bottles release moisture slowly and steadily, directly into the root zone over several days, delivering hydration exactly where plants need it most while eliminating the waste that occurs with surface watering. The system requires remarkably little maintenance beyond periodic refilling, typically every 3 to 5 days, depending on soil conditions and weather. Farmers have developed precise techniques for hole sizing. Too large and water drains too quickly. Too small and flow becomes inadequate. They've also learned optimal burial depths and spacing patterns for different crops, ensuring each plant receives consistent moisture without waterlogging. What makes this innovation truly brilliant is its cost effectiveness. While commercial drip irrigation systems require significant investment and ongoing maintenance, bottle irrigation transforms free waste materials into functional equipment that can last entire growing seasons. The technique simultaneously addresses water conservation, waste reduction, and agricultural productivity in regions where farmers often lack access to conventional irrigation infrastructure. This simple technology provides crops with steady moisture during critical growth periods, often making the difference between harvest success and complete crop failure during unpredictable rainfall years. While bottle irrigation conserves precious water in dry regions, other communities face the opposite challenge of managing abundance in naturally wet areas. Communities in Nigeria, Cameroon and Ghana faced a completely different water challenge: how to farm productively in wetlands and swampy areas that most people consider worthless, disease-ridden, and impossible to cultivate. Instead of draining these areas or avoiding them altogether, innovative farmers developed a raised bed technique that transforms waterlogged liability into agricultural gold. These farmers pile soil, compost, and plant debris into long elevated mounds rising above the waterlogged ground, creating perfect growing platforms that sit safely above standing water, while still benefiting from constant moisture below. This ingenious design provides excellent drainage at the surface where oxygen can reach plant roots, combined with steady moisture wicking upward through capillary action from the water table beneath. The channels between these raised beds serve multiple crucial functions. They act as pathways for farmers to access crops without compacting growing areas, provide habitat for fish and other aquatic creatures that can be harvested as additional protein sources, and serve as collection areas for nutrient-rich sediments that farmers periodically scoop up and add back to the growing mounds. This system creates remarkable agricultural resilience. During heavy rains that flood and destroy conventional fields, these elevated growing areas remain safely above water level and continue producing. During droughts, when rain-fed crops wither and die, the constant moisture from below continues supporting vigorous plant growth long after surrounding areas have dried out. The result is year-round food production that remains productive regardless of weather extremes, turning challenging wetland environments into some of the most reliable agricultural areas in these regions, while simultaneously maintaining the ecological benefits of preserved wetland habitat. Managing boundaries and protection around these productive growing areas led communities to develop living systems that serve multiple functions simultaneously. Farmers in Kenya, Ethiopia, and Sudan developed perhaps the most remarkable example of multifunctional living systems. By creating boundaries around their fields that don't just protect crops, they actively improve the entire farming environment while providing valuable harvests themselves. Instead of spending scarce resources on wooden posts or metal fencing that deteriorates quickly in harsh conditions, these farmers plant carefully selected thorny shrubs and trees in tight formation around field perimeters. These living barriers become stronger and more effective with each passing year instead of breaking down like conventional fencing. Species like acacia, euphorbia, and bougainvillea create impenetrable walls with their intimidating thorns and dense growth patterns, successfully deterring even determined livestock and wild animals from entering and damaging crops. But protection is just the beginning of what these strategic plantings accomplish. The deep spreading root systems prevent soil erosion along field edges where water runoff might otherwise create damaging gullies during heavy rains. Many chosen species are nitrogen fixers that enrich neighbouring soil, while others produce flowers that attract essential pollinators to crop fields and provide abundant habitat for birds and beneficial insects that help control agricultural pests naturally. The true brilliance emerges over time as these living fences provide valuable secondary harvests. Traditional healers collect medicinal bark and leaves. Families gather edible fruits and seed pods during lean seasons. Beekeepers harvest honey from hives established in the dense growth. And strategic pruning provides firewood, tool handles, and construction materials without ever compromising the fence's protective function. This creates a remarkable partnership where boundaries actively contribute to farm productivity rather than simply consuming space and resources. Beyond physical protection, the most sophisticated tribal farmers develop strategic approaches that turn potential crop enemies into allies. Instead of battling crop-destroying insects with toxic sprays, these wise farmers discovered they could essentially trick pests into concentrating where they wanted them by planting specific rows, patches, or borders of irresistibly attractive trap crops. Sunflowers, mustard greens, and certain millet varieties exert an almost magnetic pull on problem insects, luring them away from valuable cash crops through carefully timed plantings that flower or mature just before primary harvests reach their most vulnerable stages. This strategy works because most insect pests have strong preferences among potential host plants. When given a choice between their favourite meal and merely acceptable alternatives, they naturally concentrate on preferred options, a behaviour these farmers exploit by offering irresistible buffets that redirect pest pressure exactly where they want it, sacrificing small portions of land to protect everything else. The real genius emerges in timing and positioning. Farmers stagger trap crop plantings so different sections reach peak attractiveness in sequence, creating constant pest diversion throughout growing seasons. They position these sacrificial zones downwind from main crops, since many pests locate food sources primarily through airborne scent trails carried on prevailing winds. Unlike chemical controls that create deadly resistance cycles where each pesticide application selects for stronger survivor insects, these diversion tactics maintain manageable pest populations that support healthy predator communities. Birds, beneficial insects, and small mammals become concentrated around insect-rich trap crop areas, establishing self-regulating pest management systems. Many farmers don't simply destroy these pest-filled crops, but time their removal precisely, waiting until beneficial predator populations have established and laid eggs within pest colonies, then composting the plant material or feeding it to livestock, turning even the sacrificed portions into productive components of their integrated farming systems. Perhaps the most surprising of all traditional farming innovations involves transforming what modern society considers waste into one of agriculture's most effective tools. Throughout southern and eastern Africa, tribal farmers transform what modern society literally flushes away into liquid gold for their crops, bypassing expensive commercial fertilizers by tapping into a perfectly renewable resource that most people never consider as agricultural input: human and livestock urine. These resourceful farmers carefully collect urine in covered containers, then dilute it with water at specific ratios, typically around 1 part urine to 10 parts water, before applying it strategically to their crops. This liquid fertilizer delivers a powerful cocktail of immediately available nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium that produces visibly greener, more vigorous plants within days of application. What makes this technique truly remarkable is its instant effectiveness. Unlike composting, which takes months to break down materials into plant-available nutrients, this liquid fertilizer works immediately because nutrients are already in soluble form. This gives struggling plants an immediate boost during critical growth phases, often doubling yields in nitrogen-hungry crops like corn, leafy greens, and squash. These farmers have developed sophisticated application knowledge over generations. They avoid direct contact with edible portions of plants, applied during cool evening hours to prevent nitrogen loss through evaporation and carefully target heavy feeding crops during peak growth phases, while using more dilute solutions for sensitive plants. The brilliance extends beyond free fertilizer. This practice simultaneously solves sanitation challenges by diverting potential groundwater contamination into managed resource streams, reduces disease transmission through proper handling, and closes the nutrient cycle by returning elements consumed in food back to soil that produces them. Agricultural scientists now confirm what these traditional farmers have known for centuries. Fresh urine is typically sterile and contains nutrients in perfect form for plant uptake, making it one of the most effective organic fertilizers available.